Father Tompkins and Father Coady grew up here in the Margaree Valley. Both were educated in a one-room schoolhouse just up the road at Margaree Forks and went on to study at St. Francis Xavier University in Antigonish. They were double first cousins, and both were of Irish descent, whereas most of the population here is of Highland Scottish descent. One of their relatives, Doyle, was about to be hung for rebellion in Ireland. On the night before he was sentenced to die, his wife was allowed one night. On that night, she traded clothes with him, and he snuck out and came here to Cape Breton. In those days, they wouldn't hang a woman, so she too escaped, and came here to Cape Breton Island, where there are still generations of Coadys and Tompkins. You can see that both priests get their defiant spirit, honestly.
These people, Coady and Tompkins, were part of an Irish rebel tradition. And St. FX, as an institution, was largely controlled by the Scottish Catholic ascendant group. And their clergy tended to be conservative custodians of a way of life that was under attack. Coady and Tompkins were priests, but they didn't get educated entirely in Antigonish. Both went to Rome.
Now, if you went back to Europe in the 1890s, you had a big clash between the capitalists and the communists. The capitalists owned these great industries. You had children working in coal mines and in textile factories and working 18 hours a day. You had women working underground, women hauling coal carts. You had tremendous misery. So fortunately at that time, some people in the church started movements that we have to do something about this. And the Pope, Leo XIII, wrote an encyclical called Rerum Novarum, New Things. An encyclical is a letter from Rome. And it said, look, we have to help the poor people. We have to make a more just society. We cannot allow people to be exploited and ground down just for the sake of making money. There was tremendous movements of revolution and people trying to change in Europe. And so Jimmy Tompkins was inspired by this. When Tompkins came back, he inspired Moses Coady. He said, we should use our best brains to solve our worst problems.
In the Great Depression, 29 to 39, the communists were making real efforts to capitalize on the Depression, the poverty, and the starvation of people.
Tompkins and Coady had a great deal of opposition from inside the clergy. They didn't think that clergymen should be talking about economic matters. They thought it was a very Marxist orientation in the sense that it was materialist. Why should you be concerned about materialism when the objective of life is spiritual, when we're all should be concentrating on how to get to heaven?
It was quite a change. It was almost revolutionary what these men did here in Antigonish. Mm-hmm. The universities for a time did not think very highly of this coming down from the ivory tower and getting muddied up in things like cooperatives and credit unions and things of that kind. But it wasn't long before they started taking quite a keen interest in the same kind of work.
And things that had happened in other places of the world, they were aware of. They saw the credit union movement that had started by Raffenstein in Germany. They were aware of what was happening in England, especially with the Rochdale principles of cooperation, which had been used in the coal mines and in the industrial areas. And so the ideas for the Antigonish movement do come from a much broader understanding of the world and a far more ecumenical understanding of the world.
Right now we're on our way to Rochdale, which is the original home of the cooperative movement in the world, and the study club that Father Coady started in reserve mines, which was the first study club in industrial Cape Breton, was called the Toad Lane Study Club. And so now, here we are, Toad Lane.
Well, we're going back to the 1840s, known as the Hungry 40s, when life was so difficult in this country. If you say Rochdale to people today, they say, yes, it used to be a cotton town, quite right. But originally it was a woolen town, specialising in the weaving of flannel. They were weaving flannel here from about 1322. Life was very difficult indeed. There was great poverty. Everybody was in debt to shopkeepers. What do you say to me? How much do you owe me? What, 12 and 4 farthing? Right, think on. You come in every week and you pay off that debt.
These Rochdale pioneers of the co-op movement were amazing. Besides coming up with the standard principles that all co-ops agreed to, these men believed passionately in self-help, and so they started with a co-op store. They soon moved into cooperative production, co-op education with a library, as well as a co-op bank. No wonder Father Jimmy was inspired when he came here.
So from that half a pound of sugar, all those years ago, today we have over 800 million cooperators in the world.
So we've just finished our tour of Toad Lane, and Father Tompkins and Father Coady studied these principles in the 1930s, and everything that happened in this building right behind me affected the history of Nova Scotia.
This is kind of an unusual situation to be in a peripheral area and to have people in leadership roles that have been educated at the better institutions in the world, because they had an affinity for the local area. They really saw people in the local area as their relatives, as their own people. And at the same time, they had a criticism of the local area that comes from going away and seeing how things are done elsewhere.
Like a western movie star, he strode into the town like a bee trapped in a jar. Once released, he don't back down, and he'd mind your business for you. A crooked finger in your face, say blame others if you want, but those dreams were yours to chase. Here's how it's gonna be, I ain't interested in sin. I tell you what you people need, and it ain't moonshine or gin. And I have seen the face of evil, and it don't live in Toronto. It's in every kind of people, and it comes out when times get low.
Jimmy Tompkins had Father Tompkins, he had a vision. And people at some time didn't realize how smart he really was. Now that man came in here and thinking, how in the name of God did he ever expect that he could do anything in such a small place and with a bunch of fishermen that were uneducated and didn't know too much about the outside world, eh? And then he got this bright idea. He's going to build a factory. Factory in a little place like this. And I suppose the men looked around and said, he's a kook. You can do it, he said. You can do it. All we have to do is get organized and everybody chip in, everybody help. The first thing was the most important thing was the building. Where were they going to get all this lumber? So Father Jimmy says, we'll go to the woods and get it. So they took hand sleds, some of it came out by oxen, and they took the wood out from the forest. They got all the men organized together, but they had to bring in outside help to run the place because they didn't know how. They canned the lobsters, as you know, they were canning lobsters. But my father went, I don't know where, but he learned about it and brought back all the information that they would need to set it up, and they did it. He gave those people the ambition. You can do it, he said. You can do it. For a man to go into a little place like this and do what he did and get all these men organized, and today we have a better village because of him.
Back in Ethiopia, Jeff Moore of Just Us Coffee is being taken deep into the mountains by a member of the Aromia Coffee Farmers Co-op. It's a long day's drive, and Jeff has come to see his favorite blend of coffee being harvested. While the need for co-ops in North America has eased, throughout the developing world, cooperatives are thriving and greatly improving people's lives.
The idea of the Aromia Coffee Cooperative is to address poverty, chronic poverty issues, give them a life of simplicity with dignity, where they do have access to clean water, education for their kids, they can provide for their own health needs and nutrition, So those are the basics that they're looking at. An easy place to get to. It'd be nice to capture the amount of effort and work it takes to harvest the coffee on these mountains and then ship it out to washing stations and then have it washed and shipped down the mountain to the processing plant. So it's a lot of work involved in coffee. So this is the community washing station where the farmers in this community come to basically depulp their cherries.
They put the red cherry into the hopper, and then they put it through a machine with water that basically squeezes the seeds out of the cherry. So when the seeds are squeezed out of the cherry, they're covered in a sweet syrup, and that syrup has to be thoroughly washed off before they can be dried. So these men are washing the syrup off the cherries, and then it'll be sent to the drying racks where it's dried.
Well, it's another quality control step where they're taking beans that have been damaged or are defective in some way. So this coffee is now dried and ready to ship to the processing plant. And then they grade the coffee according to size and color. And then it's ready to put in 60 kilo bags and ship to Nova Scotia. And we roast this and sell it across Canada under the Jurgeshefe brand.
One of farmer who is a member of the cooperative. His house is made of from grass and wood. He have got a better price for coffee and he have changed his life. My family in good situation. My children are learning at school.
We're still in the Jurgeshefe region, and we're visiting a school that was built with fair trade premiums. In the past, 5 cents from every pound of coffee purchased goes to community projects such as schools or water. Those are the two priority areas that this co-op has established. Fair trade movement really started in Latin America, and it started kind of out of the whole movement of liberation theology, where church workers were trying to make a very practical difference in the lives of people who were kind of chronically poor and suffering in all kinds of ways because of that poverty. I used to teach about Moses Coady in my sociology courses at Acadia, and so it was an inspiration to us when we started Just Us Coffee. The whole idea of Moses Coady was to basically make people masters of their own destiny.